What's up, beautiful people? It's your girl Cam, and I am back with another video. Today I'm coming at you with my July reading wrap-up. This is the time when I give you my thoughts on all the books that I read for the month. I give you my ratings, and I also give you a chance to look at my reading journal, which is this beautiful Archer and Olive reading journal I've been using all year. So my theme for this month was mermaids slash sirens. So if you want to hear about all the books that I read and what I thought about them, just stay right there. Okay, so let's get right into it. This month I read 12 books. Yeah, I read 12 books this month. And I did, in my previous video, my June wrap-up, I did talk to you about ways that you can read more books and read faster. So I'm going to try to remember to link it in a card up above so that you can see my tips on how to read more and how to read faster if that's something that you're interested in. But I did read 12 books this month, so I'm going to go in order from my least favorite book all the way up to my favorite. And I had a surprise winner this month. Like, the book that I thought was going to be my favorite was nowhere near my top book. I think I got tricked by the cover. That's why they say never judge a book by the cover, right? Because I thought the cover was so beautiful, but the book was just so-so for me. But I had a surprise number one, so stick around for that. But I'm going to start with number 12 and work my way up to my number one pick for the month. So let's get into it. Coming in at number 12 is This is Ariel by Colin Hester. So this is a picture book. It's a second level picture book. So this is for children who are just getting started with reading, and I do from time to time give myself permission to read picture books, and so this was one for me. I did two this month, so this was one of my picture books for this month. But it's an early reader for children, and it's very beautifully illustrated, and the story is just the basic story of the Little Mermaid from Disney, told in a very simplified form for kids who are new readers. I thought this was really good. It's not a bad book. I just didn't think it was one of my favorites. I did give this one 3 stars on Goodreads, and that is This is Ariel by Colin Hester. Coming in at number 11 is a book that I listened to on Audible, and it is called Suki and the Mermaid. Okay, Suki and the Mermaid is by Robert Sansucci, and it was just a meh book for me as well. This is another picture book that I read this month, and the story is just kind of dark to me for kids. I know that I read this book back in the day, but I don't remember it being so dark. So yeah, it was just a little meh read for me. The illustrations were okay. The illustrations were even kind of dark to me as well. The story of Suki and the Mermaid is a story about a little girl who goes down to the ocean. She's being mistreated by her stepfather, or is it her father? I don't remember if it's her real father or her stepfather, but he's not very nice. And he sends her down to the ocean to, I think she goes fishing, or she's looking for crabs or something down at the ocean, and she comes in contact with this mermaid who gives her riches. So, who gives her something that causes her family to be wealthy. But mayhem ensues, and it takes a left turn, and I just thought it was a little dark for a children's book. So I gave this one 3 stars on Goodreads, and I did listen to this on Audible, and that is Suki and the Mermaid by Robert Sansucci. And coming in at number 10 is a book that doesn't fit in with my mermaid and siren theme, but it does help me with my A to Z reading challenge. So this year I gave myself a challenge to read a book that starts with one letter of the alphabet, or each letter of the alphabet. So I was having trouble finding a book that began with the letter U that I wanted to read. So I decided to read Up from Slavery by Booker T. Washington, which is helping me do some research for another project that I'm working on. So this is a book about his life growing up as a slave and his work at Hampton Institute and Tuskegee Institute. So the book is well written, but there are just some ideologies that Booker T. Washington held that I just was not in agreement with. I was not in agreement with, and I already knew this going into the book, what his philosophies were about work and about segregation and integration. I knew these things already, but to read them again, especially at this time in our history when so many politicians are trying to wipe out our history as a people and trying to say that slavery was beneficial for Black people, it just triggered a whole lot of emotions for me. So, but I am reading this book, one, to finish my A to Z reading challenge, and two, as some research for a project that I'm working on, and really three, to kind of see what people are talking about in terms of slavery was good for Black people. So this was number 10 for me on my list. And again, it does tell a lot about what Booker T. Washington was able to accomplish. I just am not in agreement with a lot of his philosophies. So I gave it 3 stars. And this was number 10 for me this month on my list. That is Up from Slavery by Booker T. Washington. I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads. And coming in at number 9 is Soul of the Deep by Natasha Bowman. So this is part 2 in a series by Natasha Bowman. I think it's a duology. It may end up being a trilogy, I'm not sure. But this is the second part of her Mermaid series. And it was a decent book. It's not as good as the first part to me. This book in some places was just really slow. I thought it was a good story, but it just was not one of my favorites for the month. I thought the characters were just kind of meh in this one, and the story again was just pretty slow. This is a story about a girl who is turned into a mermaid. They call them Mami Wata, and this does take place in Africa. And she's turned into a mermaid, and then she does something that she isn't supposed to do. She saves a human. She saves a human's life. And so there's all this mayhem that ensues because she's done something that she wasn't supposed to do. And she isn't supposed to fall in love with a human, or she can be turned into foam. So this is the second part of this book, though. So there are some spoilers that I don't want to mess up in case you want to read it, because it's not a bad book. It's just not one of my favorites. I don't want to spoil anything for you, so I just want to say it's part 2. She ends up fighting some of the Orishas. There's a lot of emphasis on Yoruba culture, Yoruba traditions, Orishas. There's a lot of emphasis on African culture and African traditions, which I appreciate. I appreciate all the descriptions of the underwater worlds and the way people are dressed and the way things feel. I appreciate all of that. It just was not one of my favorite books. So this book got 4 stars from me on Goodreads. This is the second book in a series by Natasha Bowman, and this is Soul of the Deep. I tried to be careful not to spoil anything, y'all. This is hard. But this was number 9 for me on my list this month, Soul of the Deep by Natasha Bowman. Coming in at number 8 is Keeper by Kathy Appelt. Now this was such a cute book. I was really surprised. I thought it was going to be a decent book, but it was such a cute book. I read this in like a day and a half, 2 days. It is a YA book, and it's about a little girl who, I think she's 11 years old, 10 or 11 years old, and she believes that her mom is a mermaid. She really believes this with all her heart, that her mom is a mermaid. And her mother is no longer with her. She has a found family. I love found families in books, right? They're always very sweet to read. Families that you weren't born with, but that you acquire through some circumstances. And a lot of times they are more special and more treasured than a birth family because they chose you, right? So this is about a little girl who has a found family. Her mother is no longer with her, but she believes her mother is a mermaid. So this particular day is supposed to be the blue moon day, and they have all these special events planned for the blue moon, but things start to go wrong. Things start to go wrong very quickly early in the day, and this little girl, her name is Keeper, tries to fix the problems that she has caused early in the morning. She tries to fix these problems that she caused, and it's just a sweet little adventure. It's a very innocent, very sweet little adventure about a little girl who makes a lot of mistakes, but tries to fix them in the best way that she knows how with her found family, and it really is a beautiful story. So there is a mermaid in here. There is a mermaid in this story. It's a surprise who it actually is. So if you have children who are interested in mermaids, this is a cute little sweet story about a little girl in search of the mermaid, in search of her mom, who she believes is a mermaid. Yeah, so I gave this one 4 stars on Goodreads. This is Keeper by Kathy Appelt, and this was number 8 on my list this month. A very sweet book. And coming in at number 7 is The Deep by Rivers Solomon. So this is a story about how mermaids came into existence, and it has something to do with the African slave trade and bodies that were thrown overboard. So it's a very interesting take on where mermaids come from. I just thought this book was a little weird. I just thought it was a little strange. It was hard for me to keep up with whose perspective we were hearing from sometimes. For example, we were in one person's story, one person or one perspective, and then the chapter ended and we started with another perspective, but I had no idea who was talking for like 3 or 4 pages. I had no idea who are we talking about. And it was just really weird to me. Some aspects of this book were a little strange. It is interesting though, and it is fantasy, and the writing is good. The writing is very poetic, and I think that this book came from a song, and I think some of the cast of Hamilton, some people in the cast from Hamilton had something to do with the production of this book. It has won a lot of awards. A lot of people love it. It was just a little weird for me. There were aspects that were really beautifully written and very poetically written. There were some parts that I really did grasp and I got into, and it's a lot about remembering your history, holding on to history, holding on to heritage, and kind of why mermaids exist. And they're called Wajinru in this particular story. So yeah, there's a lot going on in it. I just had some difficulty sometimes figuring out who was talking in the story. And then there are just some really strange parts of the book that I just did not enjoy that much. So I didn't think it was a horrible book. I don't think it's a horrible book. It's just not one of my favorites. I did give this one 4 stars on Goodreads because it does have a lot of beautiful poetic writing, and the concept of where mermaids come from was really beautifully written and very beautifully thought out. There were just some parts of it that I didn't really enjoy. But anyway, I gave it 4 stars, and this is The Deep by Rivers Solomon. I read this one on Kindle, and I also listened to it on an audiobook as well to kind of help me get through it a little bit faster, because there were some parts that were kind of dragging on a little bit. Yeah, so I listened to this one on an audiobook, and I also read along on my Kindle. That is The Deep by Rivers Solomon. And coming in at number 6 is Songs from the Deep. Now this is one that I listened to on audiobook on Hoopla. I'll show you a picture of the cover right here. Songs from the Deep is written by Kelly Powell. This is a very cute story about a girl who lives in a town that is known for sirens. It is known in this little beach town that sirens can kill you. And they have done so in this community. So this is a thriller, a mermaid siren thriller. And I read 2 thrillers this month, and they were both pretty good. So in this one, there are sirens in this beach town that are known for killing people, and a little boy ends up on the beach, and he's not alive. And the people of the beach town are just adamant that the sirens did this. And so they think that the sirens need to be destroyed. But this woman in this book, she is convinced that what happened to this little boy was not at the hands of the sirens. She's saying that the way this little boy was taken out was not the way that sirens normally do their thing, right? So she goes on this mission to try to find out who really took the life of this sweet little boy. And it's a very, very well written story. And there's a love story embedded in here. The story of the sirens is just well written. It's a good whodunit, kind of like a little Agatha Christie whodunit. It's not really gory and scary like that. It's a really good whodunit and a thriller. So I did give this one 4 stars on Goodreads. That is Songs from the Deep by Kelly Powell. And I do recommend that you read this one. If you like stories about mermaids and you like whodunits, I think you'll like this one. Songs of the Deep, Kelly Powell. Okay, we're getting to my top 5 books now, and coming in at number 5 is The Mermaid of Venice by Jency Lumpkin. I did listen to this one on an audiobook from Hoopla, so I'll show you a cover of the book right here. Now this is another mermaid / siren thriller. This one was so good. Like the siren / mermaid in this book, you don't want to mess with her. You do not want to mess with her. So this is like a modern take on how sirens seduce men and then kill them, right? So this is modern day Venice, and this mermaid is seducing men and taking their lives and taking them to her underwater grotto, and then social media is finding out about these men being missing. She messed around and killed someone who was very popular. That's what happened, and she didn't think that it was going to come back to bite her in the tuchus, but it did. So this particular guy that she got rid of, he was very popular, very well known, and people start looking for him, trying to figure out where he is, and social media is all over it. And you know, cameras are everywhere, and cameras can see what you're doing. But fortunately for this particular mermaid, there is a family that she ends up being in connection with who does like the Olivia Pope, and they try to handle it for her, right? And try to wipe this away so that it doesn't become a big deal and she doesn't go to prison for killing this man. But it's a very good mermaid thriller. And it's a little on the creepy side. It's not scary, but it's a little bit on the creepy side. And this mermaid is somebody that you do not want to cross. Okay, she's one that you don't want to cross. And that is The Mermaid of Venice by Jency Lumpkin. A very good story, y'all. If you like whodunits, I think you'll like this one too. And coming in at number 4 is the book that I thought was going to be my number 1 for the month. But every book that I kept reading kept going above this book. Oh my goodness. So this is Skin of the Sea by Natasha Bowen. I just thought I was going to adore this one. And I did like it. I gave it 5 stars. It's a good book. But there were just other books that surpassed it. As I kept reading, I read this one early in the month because this was our book club pick. And I read this one maybe around the 2nd or 3rd of July, and I thought it was going to be my number 1, but the more I kept reading, the more I kept finding books that surpassed this one. At any rate, it's a good book. So these 2 books go together. This is the first book in the duology, and this is the second one. This one was a lot better. That's why it's ranked number 4. But there's a lot about the Yoruba cultures and traditions in here, a lot about Africa. The mermaids are described beautifully. The characters are lively and the characters are interesting. Oh, there are lots of fantastic characters in here. There's an animal that's like a unicorn. There are these big, huge man-eating bats in here. I mean, there's a lot going on in this book. It just was not my number 1. It just was not my number 1, but it's very well written. It's a good story. If you like stories about mermaids, this one is a good one. This is a girl that starts off as a human woman, and then she's turned into a mermaid for a specific reason. I don't want to spoil it for you, but the mermaids are called Mami Wata. It does take place in Africa. There's a lot about the Yoruba culture and traditions in this book, but I just did not find it to be my favorite of the month. This is number 4, Skin of the Sea by Natasha Bowen. And I did give this one 5 stars on Goodreads. Coming in at number 3 is To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. Now this was my kind of mermaid story. It was really, really good. It was so full of action and adventure, and it was a beautiful fantasy. The different worlds and countries that you went to in the story were just so beautifully described. The main character in this story is not a mermaid, she's a siren, and she's another one that you don't want to mess with because her job is to go out here and kill siren hunters, and then there's a major siren hunter in this story as well. This story is told with a dual perspective, so one from the siren and one from the siren hunter. Mermaids are described so crazy. Mermaids are described so crazy in this book. They're like gross. And the sirens are the ones who are really beautiful in this novel. But it's so well written. I think I read this one also in a day or a day and a half. I did tandem reading, so I was reading the book and also listening to the audio. The audio was so good, and it was like you were watching a movie almost. It was so well done. So I did give this one 5 stars. That is To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. And this was so good, y'all. If you like mermaid stories, I think you'll really enjoy this one. And coming in at number 2 is A Song Below Water by Bethany Morrow. Y'all, this one was really good. It was really good. This was a story about lots of different mythical creatures. So mermaids and cyclops and sirens and gargoyles. It was just so good. But it was set in modern day. So it's like this speculative fiction fantasy about these teenagers who have these special gifts and special abilities. And so the siren in this story is a black female, and the issues and the challenges that she faces mirror the challenges and the issues that black women face in modern day America. I mean, who thought of this? This was really good. So much about your voice being heard and your voice being silenced by so many people and your voice being feared by so many people. When I tell you this was well written and well thought out, it was really, really good. And there are some twists and turns that I was not expecting in this novel. There's one part that I figured out pretty early on, but the details of it I didn't understand until later on near the end of the novel. But a good book with a lot of social commentary, but not like hitting you over the head with it. I didn't feel like I was being hit over the head anyway, but it feels like, but it felt like there was a lot of really good, strong social commentary being examined in this novel, and it was well written, well thought out. Another book with dual perspectives from 2 sisters in this novel as well. There's also a found family in this novel as well, and I just enjoyed every minute of it. It took me a while to get through this one. I think it took me about 4 or 5 days to read this one because I had to digest some of what I was reading, because some of it was really deep and somewhat triggering for me. So it took me a while to read it, not because it wasn't good, but because I had to pause and just digest some of what was going on. But this was a really good book. This was A Song Below Water by Bethany Morrow. I gave this one 5 stars. It came in at number 2. I highly recommend this one. And coming in at number 1 is The Mermaid of Black, Conch. This one was a surprise for me. I was not expecting to love this book as much as I did, and I think it had a lot to do with the cover, y'all. The cover of this book is ugly. The cover of this book is not cute. Okay, I'm going to show you the cover of the book that is mainly being circulated right now. Okay, I'm going to show you the cover right here. Okay, and I just put off reading this book. Again, the old saying, never judge a book by its cover. One day I'm going to figure that out. One day I'm going to figure that out. But I just kept putting off reading this book because I did not like the cover, and boy was I surprised. The book itself is so awesome. So awesome, but I do wish the author would change the cover. I did find some alternate covers that have been used around the world, and I'm going to show those to you. And I'm going to show you my favorite one first. This is not the main cover that's being circulated, but I did find another alternate cover. So I'm going to show you about 3 or 4 different covers, and you tell me which one you like. But I like this one the best, this first one. Okay, so those are some, in my opinion, some better covers. I wish the author would choose a better cover for her book because it might give her some more traction. I don't know, but she won a lot of awards for this book regardless. I should have known that the book was going to be really good because she did win a lot of awards. I think she won the best book in Costa Rica last year, a couple of years ago. But the cover threw me off. Okay, enough talk about the cover. I read it on my Kindle, but my access to this book expired and somebody else was waiting to read it, so I can't show you the cover here on my Kindle, but I did read it on my Kindle. Okay, so let's talk about The Mermaid of Black Conch. This story is set in, I think, the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. So it's very modern day. And it is a story about men who are going on a fishing expedition who catch a mermaid. And when I tell you this story really describes what I think would happen if men caught a half female, half fish in the water. Like, it describes what I think men would really do if they caught a mermaid. It's such a modern day, like, adult take on a mermaid story. So let your mind kind of wander on what you think men would do if they found a mermaid. Probably that, what you're thinking, and more. But it is such a beautiful story. There is a love story, actually 2 love stories embedded in this novel. But the reality of what people would do if they actually encountered this type of creature, that was just genius. This author is a genius. And it's part poetry and it's part novel, and the perspectives or the writing style changes from like first person to third person sometimes, but despite that, it's a very well written novel. I loved it, and I felt ashamed of myself for judging this book by the cover when I finished reading it, but I gave it 5 stars. It is an awesome book. It's what I would call an adult mermaid story. It's not for children. I would not recommend this for a child. It is for grown-ups. Because there's some language in the book that's, you know, not appropriate for kids. There's some situations in this book that are not appropriate for kids, but it's a grown-up story about mermaids and how she became a mermaid, why she's a mermaid, and what people would really do if they caught one. It's just so well written, y'all. I've really, really enjoyed it. And that was number 1 for me, The Mermaid of Black Conch by Monique Rafi. Well written. All right, y'all, that's it for me for this month. That is my July reading wrap up. I want to show you really quickly my overhead shot of my reading journal so you can see all of my stats and how everything came together. So if you want to see that, just stay right there. Okay, now let's get into my reading journal. This is an Archer and Olive A5, and this is where I keep all my stats and document all my reading for each day. So we'll go into July and take a look at my stats here. This is my intro page with my calendar. This is where I indicate when I start and finish a book. I just draw a line through the calendar to the day that I write down the name of the book, then I draw a line to the day that I end, and then I write a list of all of the books that I read for the month. And I did use Wrong DeVoe illustrations in this setup. Very pretty. Alright, so on this page, this is where I track my pages read, and I go all the way over to 100. And on this next page, it's by chapter. This is where I track, kind of track the chapters that I'm reading. I kind of do like every 5 chapters if it's a long book. This really has not been working out that well, so I'll probably change it next year. But for now, I'm going with it as it is. So these are all the books I read this month. And for my stats, I have total books read 12. Total books bought this month is 5. Total pages read is 2,952. That's less than what I read last month by like 1,000 pages. Last month was serious. Okay, last month I remember I didn't read any children's books. They were all like regular size, regular length books. So I did 3,949 last month, but this month is 2,952. So that's not bad. My average star rating was 4.0. Let me put the 0 in there. And then my favorite mermaid was Ariel, who was from the Mermaid of Black conch. She was awesome. She was awesome. I highly recommend that book, y'all. Okay, and for my favorite quotes, this quote came from the Mermaid of Black conch too. Listen to this. The local men stared. They felt a sense of blasphemy. This was something that shouldn't be done. They should pull the hook from her mouth and release her back to the deep. They saw her rare nature, her long dreadlocks flowing about her, and the water jolting electric currents of silver alongside her tail. It was so good. So I have some other quotes over here on the side. And then I have my book reviews. I have my book review of The Mermaid of Black conch here. A Song Below Water. I love this page. I think it turned out so great. And then here is my page for Skin of the Deep, and also my section for To Kill a Kingdom. And I'm going to take some pictures at the book club meetup and put a picture or two here, and then write something about the Skin of the Deep and the conversation that we have over on this side. Okay, and I think that's it, y'all. That is it. We go into my August setup next. So that is it. Let's look at the stats though in the back before I close this video out. So I had 5 books purchased, 12 books read. I read for 29 days, read 2,952 pages, 4.0 average rating, 5 4 stars, 4 5 stars, 0 historic fiction, romance, graphic novel, and fiction, 5 fantasy, 1 nonfiction, 2 picture books, 1 thriller. I really should say 2 thrillers. There really should be 2 thrillers there because Songs from the Deep and The Mermaid of Venice were both thrillers. So I'm going to count this as 4. I'm going to change this right quick. I'm going to change both of these. So we're going to say 4 just straight up fantasies and then 2 thrillers. Yeah. All right, so 4 fantasies, 1 nonfiction, 2 picture books, 2 thrillers, and 3 YAs, young adults. All right, so that is going to do it, y'all, for this video. I hope that you enjoyed this reading wrap up for the month of July. I hope that you read some good books in July. If you did, give me some recommendations down in the comments. What book did you read in July that you really enjoyed that you think I should read in the coming months? All right, y'all, thanks so much for joining me for this video. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I hope you have a great week. I hope you have a great week of reading, a great month of reading. I hope your August is full of great books, and I hope that your August is full of love, joy, and most of all, peace. See you next time.